in-laws tried to sabotage our wedding, but we got the last laugh.
That was it. That was the last one. No.
My husband and I are celebrating our 5-year anniversary next month, so I thought for S&G, I'd share what went down at the wedding. My husband and I both have very dramatic families. Because of this, I was very skeptical about having a traditional wedding. By the way, this comes from Ecstatic Intern 1633. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to r/OKStorytime subreddit. So we settled on getting eloped without telling anyone, and then holding a small wedding about a month after we returned from our vacation, our elopement trip plus honeymoon. It was very short notice, but we wanted it to be just immediate family and close friends, so it wasn't a big deal. When we invited his mother, she was rather upset because they have a lot of family, and we weren't inviting the bulk of them. Just my husband's brothers, their wives and kids, and a couple of his cousins. My husband explained to her that it wasn't a big event held in our backyard and that he only wanted those most important to him to be there. That pissed her off even more because she took it as him saying the rest of the family wasn't important to him. She told him that if that was the case, then she might not come at all. He told her he hoped she'd reconsider, but that it was her prerogative, and we left. Over the course of the month, she would call him frequently and ask if various people could be invited. Family members, family friends, and at one point, random people from her church. Neither of us are religious. He told her no on most accounts, including both of his uncles, one of his aunts, and her pastor. She called me once or twice to ask about wedding arrangements, if she needed to bring anything, and asked if I wanted to go with her and both sister-in-laws to get dresses for the wedding. I told her most of the plans and went with them to pick dresses, mostly because I was terrified one of them would pick something white. Shopping was very tame. They were cordial at least, which is saying something for 3 women who all hate each other and me. Nobody picked out anything inappropriate. The only weird thing was that all 3 women adamantly complained that they never got a real wedding. And when I was asked to show them a picture of my dress, they gave half-hearted compliments. I asked my younger sister and my best friend to be my bridesmaids. My husband asked one of his brothers and his best friend, and we had 2 of my nieces and one of his as flower girls. Once I started setting plans in motion, that's when mother-in-law and one of my sister-in-laws started acting weird. Sister-in-law apparently threw a fit that her husband and daughter were asked to be in the wedding, and she wasn't. Brother-in-law wound up asking me if I'd consider adding her as a bridesmaid, and I said no. He didn't blame me, but it did cause him and their daughter to almost drop from the wedding completely. A few days later, however, she dropped in. My grandma, who I am no contact with, dropped by our house to tell me that she was told about the wedding and that I was pregnant. Since she couldn't get in touch with me, she wanted to ask if she could come. I have no idea how she got our address. I told her I wasn't pregnant. There was no wedding, and not to come by my house unannounced again, or I'd call the cops.
Don't call me.
Don't call me. Don't come by my house. She left. Every time we went to my mother-in-law, she would ask me to bring my dress next time so she could see it. I would forget on purpose because I had a gut feeling she was planning something. She continually asked me about the plans for the wedding, but I figured she was just excited and wanted to be involved, so I told her if she wanted, she could cook some of the food. She accepted. She asked if I wanted her to make the cake, but I told her no because my sister, who's a great baker, had already offered. She told me what she was going to make, and my mother made the rest. I DIY'd pretty much everything myself with some help from my sister and best friend. We rented tables and chairs. I planned to put all the food in the kitchen, which has French doors going to our patio, and the backyard where I planned for the ceremony and reception to be. I wanted as few people in the house as possible since we have pets, including big dogs, and I knew they would go absolutely nuts at a house full of people. The night before the big day, mother-in-law came over to bring what she had cooked. She asked to see what my mom had cooked and the cake my sister made, which she said was gorgeous. She asked me to try my dress on for her, and before I could disagree, my husband stepped in to tell her we had a big day tomorrow and he thought that he and I should get some rest.
Nice. W.
Good job. The morning of the big day, my sister and bestie came early to help me get everything else ready. An hour or so later, brother-in-law showed up with his daughter, saying sister-in-law would come later. Mother-in-law showed up right after in regular clothes and without my husband's little brother. When I asked her, she said she was going to go back home to change and pick him up and then come back so that she could help set up. Her version of helping was telling my sister and bestie where to put stuff, then moving it around if she didn't like it. I let it go and told them to do the same. About an hour before the ceremony was supposed to start, people started showing up and mother-in-law ran home to change. I started socializing and was immediately weirded out because people kept mentioning babies, and pregnancy. Then I remembered my grandma mentioned it as well. My husband's cousin asked if I had any symptoms yet, and when I asked her what she was talking about, she said sister-in-law had told people I was pregnant, and that was why we were getting married on such short notice.
Not pregnant. Why is this person lying?
Not pregnant.
Why?
Not pregnant. I told her that was a lie and that I'd appreciate it if she told anyone else who mentioned it the same thing. She wasn't surprised, though, because the whole family knows how sister-in-law is. About 20 minutes before the ceremony, I left my bestie to oversee everything downstairs while my sister and mom helped me change into my dress. All of a sudden, my bestie ran up to announce that my husband's ex-wife was there, apparently invited by sister-in-law.
Dude, what is his sister doing?
Why did the ex-wife come?
Sister just wants to, marry her own brother.
Bestie found my husband, brought him upstairs, and I told him to please ask her to leave. My husband and his brother handled the situation, and she left. Then his brother pulled sister-in-law aside to cuss her out for bringing the ex. I finished getting ready and came back downstairs. At this point, everyone was in the backyard except the bridal party. I was then told that mother-in-law hadn't come back yet, and it was pretty much ceremony time already, so we started without her. She arrived right before I was supposed to walk down the aisle in, you guessed it, a white dress, which had an eerily similar design to mine.
So let's kick
Who's
her
shocked
out. Let's kick her out.
Instead of coming inside and going to the back where I could have seen her, she sneaked around and went through my fence gate, walking straight down the aisle in the middle of the procession. I tried not to freak out on her right then and there and gracefully walked down the aisle. She wasn't done though, because before we could start, mother-in-law stood up and insisted on making an acknowledgement for my husband's deceased aunt, followed by a moment of prayer. We continued on, did our vows, and towards the end, sister-in-law very loudly said, "Isn't there a part where we get to object?" To which I yelled back, "No!"
Where's anyone else?
Yeah, why isn't anyone tackling her to the ground?
Somebody needs to do something.
Somebody needs to do something!
She cannot be allowed to get away with this behavior.
We almost finished when sister-in-law decided to stand and say, "You shouldn't marry her. She's awful." To which my husband responded, "We're already married," and sealed it with a kiss. After the ceremony, I went to change into something else. If this lady is still here,
dude,
I'm going to be shocked.
Hey, just because you wore a white dress to our wedding doesn't mean you're the one getting married, loser.
Loser. By the time I came back down, my husband's brother, sister-in-law, and their daughter had already left. Mother-in-law was berating my husband for getting eloped without telling anyone. What sister-in-law said is all anyone was talking about, but my husband managed to calm me down and we went on a smoke break. I thought at least nothing else could go wrong, but I was mistaken. When we came back to the backyard, mother-in-law had already started letting people inside to eat, including our cake. Why are people dumb?
Who are these people?
Have they never been to a wedding before?
Slither back.
You dumb idiots.
Into the primordial ooze.
My sister started crying because we didn't get to take pictures. I calmed down my sister while my husband talked to his mom. Then his uncle showed up uninvited. Mother-in-law claimed she thought they only weren't invited to the ceremony. And my husband's cousin asked them to leave, and they did. Just as they were leaving, my grandmother showed up and began crying, insulting me because I lied to her about the wedding. She said I didn't want her there, that I don't love her, and that I'm ungrateful. My mother walked her out after I told her I'd call the cops if she didn't leave. After that, I turned the music up and my husband and I ate, drank, and danced and ignored everyone else. My niece accidentally spilled juice on mother-in-law's dress. Very clever, since you can't really be mad at a 4-year-old.
Shout out. Shout out the 4-year-old.
Shout out that freaking
Let's
4-year-old.
go.
Mother-in-law asked to go inside and borrow something to change into. My husband said, "Why don't you go home?" The night ended with me and my husband happy, full, and wasted since the party thinned out significantly. We wanted to take advantage of all the food and drinks. My sister and mom were the last people there. We played cards together until we started to pass out at the table. They spent the night and we went to bed. By the way, you can spend the night with us if you listen to full episodes of stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app and search for Podcast Start Time.
Spend the night with us and we'll be all up in those ears.
All up in those ears.
All up.
White. I'm still so happy we got eloped on a beautiful vacation and that the story of our marriage doesn't start with this wild wedding. If it had, I would have absolutely lost it at several points. Instead, I can look back and laugh at the fake wedding party we decided to have to make everyone else happy and how much they hated it anyway. In case you're wondering, we're very low contact with mother-in-law and sister-in-law, as much as we can be, with my husband still being able to see his niece and brother. We live across the country from them now, so it's not nearly as big as a deal as it was. Thanks for sticking around. I know this was a long one. And And that is the end of that story. That's a freaking wrap.
Wash your hands of
Wash
these
your hands of
individuals.
this business.
Wash your hands. They're getting their primordial ooze all over.
They'll
your
get
hands
what's coming to them.
because they're creatures. So don't let these creatures, and I feel like you're already
Preach
aware of
all
this.
over you.
Which is why you did the eloping and why you had the fake wedding.
Definitely.
Really the second wedding.
Exactly. That's what you
You
do.
know.
That's what you got to do, man.
Don't let the ooze back into your life.
Yeah. But that
Yeah.
is the end of that story.